te faire une surprise pour ton anniversaire.
Mais je ne veux pas fêter ce putain d'anniversaire! Merde!
Geste décisif, pas de retour en arrière.
Hello and welcome to our weekly film show with our critic Lisa Nesselson. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Eve.
Now we're starting with a sequel to the actor and director Guillaume Canet's Little White Lies from 2010. Now it was a bittersweet comedy with some of France's best actors. Tell us about Little White Lies 2.
Well, the original film is about a group of friends who selfishly decide to go on their annual vacation anyway, even though their good friend Ludo, played by Jean Dujardin, is seriously ill in the hospital after a motorcycle accident. Canet is phenomenally talented. He can do comedy and drama. His first film as a director, Mon Idole, was a sharp critique of business and TV, co-starring his then-wife, the incredibly talented Diane Kruger. His 2006 psychological thriller, Tell No One, was terrific. His film before this, Rock and Roll, was way, way out there as a satire about French show business in which Canet plays a version of himself opposite his current wife, Marion Cotillard, playing a version of herself, and his wife forever, I hope. Despite his track record, I wasn't looking forward to this one.
Okay, well, let's take a look at Little White Lies 2.
Max, il fait rien, il est là pour se reposer, c'est moi qui m'occupe de tout.
Je vais pas dormir ici, je vais pas passer ma vie à dormir avec tes gosses.
Il faut qu'elle dorme.
Catherine, ça me fait plaisir.
Mais non!
C'est chiant de parler copine. Tu veux pas de moi alors?
Ils sont prévenus de rester combien de temps?
La semaine.
So François Cluzet plays Max, a successful, self-made entrepreneur. His spacious house in Cap Ferret is where this group of pals have always spent their summer vacation together. It's still a secret when the movie starts that his restaurant in Paris has failed. He is in deep, deep debt, and he's come to put that spacious vacation house up for sale without telling his ex-wife, their children, or his beautiful and much younger girlfriend. It's been 3 years since the gang was together there, and within the first 10 minutes, they show up to surprise him for his 60th birthday, which is 3 days away, and Max is not pleased, as you could see. He left off on frankly awful terms with some of the key characters, and he wonders why he should go on pretending to care about others, just because they've known each other forever. Also, he wants to get the house sold before his ex-wife shows up.
And is this autobiographical in any way?
Well, Canet has said that he was prompted to write the first one when he ended up in the hospital with a horrible infection, and none of his so-called friends could be bothered coming to visit him. Although it resulted in a runaway hit movie, massively successful, apparently that shoot was stressful and kind of unpleasant, and he swore he'd never embark on a comparable film project again. Then it happened to come on TV not that long ago. He got involved, watched the whole thing, and realized he had a new batch of questions. What are the obligations and limits of friendship? Should you continue to see the people you've always known, even if death, rising and falling fortunes, changes in sexual orientation, divorce, etc., should come along? I realized I found those characters obnoxious right off the bat the first time because they abandoned Ludo in favor of their sacrosanct holidays. This time, there's still a lot of obnoxious behavior, but the characters themselves have aged and matured a bit. And to my surprise, I like this one way more than the original. There actually are a lot of serious themes percolating under the surface, and it builds to a layered, dramatic conclusion.
Okay, well, it sounds fun. Well, let's move on. The American filmmaker Frederick Wiseman is releasing his 42nd documentary. It's set in a small town in the state of Indiana, home of deeply religious US Vice President Mike Pence. Now tell us, what did you learn from watching Monrovia, Indiana?
Wiseman never makes value judgments. He doesn't give you voiceover narration or explanatory words on the screen. He just films a lot and lets you make up your own mind. While watching the film, I had no idea how many people actually live in Monrovia, Indiana. After the show, I learned that the population is 1,400, 96.3% white, and 1.4% African American. For comparison, the U.S. overall is 63.7% white and close to 13% black. And everybody in Monrovia goes to church, overwhelmingly evangelical Protestant.
Okay, well, let's get acquainted with the landscape and the people of Monrovia, Indiana.
Carrots? Yeah, I got about 5 pounds of them.
Tell you, I had some last night. They're the best carrots I ever ate.
I've already used them all. My wife had to go for a 2-week vacation, so I just cooked carrots and ate them. Diet food.
I never eat carrots that was that good before.
Think it worked?
They ate them all. Yeah.
Well, not diet food, but I drink a lot of beer to help wash it down.
Oh, okay. All right, I couldn't figure out. I was saying, I don't think it worked.
Now, Wiseman shot for 9 weeks in 2017. Was he trying to take the pulse of a country where something like 60 million people had recently voted for Donald Trump?
Well, that would be a fair assumption. Mass media outlets, of course, trying to figure out what happened, told us that Middle America voted for Trump because Midwestern voters felt overlooked and were struggling and despondent and tired of politics as usual. 76% of voters in Monrovia did indeed vote for Trump, compared to 57% for the state of Indiana and 47.5% for the nation as a whole. But it turns out that those reasons can't be the right ones because the median household income in Monrovia is actually higher than the median income for the entire USA, and that households in this small town with its churches and gun store and cornfields earn $15,000 more a year than households in the rest of Indiana. Fields, silos, pigs, Bible classes. If there's a room, there's an American flag in it, maybe two. It's hard to imagine how anybody in this environment would ever have a chance at developing what I'd call good taste. In fact, there's a barber shop giving haircuts where I'd hire a lawyer to protest the results.
Wiseman has said that the people of Monrovia were kind, they were sincere, and no one talked about politics.
That's right. Wiseman was also surprised how hardly anybody bothers to travel the whole 30 minutes by car to visit the state's biggest city, Indianapolis. In other words, the residents of Monrovia like things just the way they are, and they have minimal curiosity about the outside world. Wiseman is just the opposite. He made his first documentary, Titicut Follies, in 1967, and in fact, for the last 20 years or so, he's enjoyed a lot of financial support from French producers. He's taken a detailed look at life here in France in his 214-minute-long La Comédie Française in 1996, La Danse, about the Paris Opera Ballet in 2009, and the tastefully topless Paris Cabaret in Crazy Horse in 2011.
Okay, I've interviewed him twice, actually. It was a real delight. Now, moving on, lots of tributes are being made to the American director John Singleton, who's died this week at the age of 51. He made his mark in the 1991 Boys in the Hood, a portrait of black lives in Southern California. Tell us more about the mark he made.
Well, I actually have some personal memories of John Singleton and also rapper-actor Ice Cube, who I got to interview in Cannes after Boys in the Hood made a big splash, in the festival sidebar called The Director's Fortnight. Singleton wrote the script his senior year at the University of Southern California Film School, and he was just 22 when he started directing it. He was the first African-American ever nominated for a directing Oscar. That was 27 years ago, and it seemed as if the problems of institutional racism in American society were finally being talked about more and even being tackled. The film is about three male friends in the Los Angeles neighborhood, then known as South Central, as they try to steer clear of drugs and gang violence and not always succeeding.
Now, for the 25th anniversary of the film, Singleton actually told Vanity Fair that cinema saved him from being a delinquent.
Yes, art can save lives sometimes, but it's the first thing they always want to cut out of curriculums to save money. Now, I had grown up hearing about Negroes and colored people, which then became black, as in the slogan, Black is Beautiful, but had shifted to African American in the early 90s. I figured I'd ask Ice Cube how he preferred to be described, and he answered, African suits me, but not American. America hasn't done much for me. He was already a successful musician. The film's title was taken from one of his lyrics, and it was clear that he could act, but still this underlying feeling. Singleton was thrilled that Cannes audiences were connecting with his independent-spirited story, and he told me the French journalists asked him really interesting questions compared to the U.S. press. Singleton went on to direct and produce other films and TV episodes, including a remake of Shaft in 2000 and one of the early Fast and Furious films. Boys in the Hood is anti-gang and very much anti-violence, but unfortunately, violence really did break out in at least 20 American theaters that showed the movie. Singleton helped blaze a trail that's still, alas, extremely relevant, the obstacles Black Americans face on a daily basis. And when Moonlight won the Best Picture Oscar, there were articles explaining that in parts of the U.S., even today, it's possible for a black child to grow up and never, ever see a white face except that of a police officer.
OK, well, you've definitely made me want to watch Boys in the Hood again, Lisa. Thank you. In the French documentary 1968, My Father and Some Nails, the director Samuel Bigyaoui focuses on his father as he prepares to sell his Paris hardware store, which has been running for decades. It won the top prize at the last Champs-Élysées Film Festival. Now, is this a film for handy men and women only, or is someone like me going to enjoy it?
I recommend it to absolutely anybody, especially people who know Paris, who likes one-of-a-kind small businesses run by real people for other real people, not chain stores. When the hardware store owner's son realized his dad was losing money and was getting ready to retire, he started filming the customers and the daily interactions in the store. The result is bittersweet and delightful, because you couldn't make up a cast of characters like this if you tried. Turns out Dad has a pretty interesting background, ranging from revolutionary politics to marquee name filmmaking, but he ended up taking over a shop that sells nails and glue and paint and lumber cut to order. We see him on the phone trying to collect money he's due, and we see neighborhood denizens who stop by to chat. And I'll admit, I cried when the man who worked with him for decades cutting lumber to measure says goodbye. It's a wonderful document about a unique hard store emporium, funny and accessible, and a lot more entertaining than the chain grocery store that took its place.
Oh, Lisa, thank you so much. We're going to leave you now with 1968, My Father and Some Nails. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
C'est un mec qui a fait des études supérieures, qui a essayé de faire la révolution. Personne ne peut deviner que c'est un dangereux subversif qui est derrière la caisse.
Préparer une action clandestine du rôle, ça demande des semaines de préparation.
Pardon, excusez-moi. Il y a de tabourets à vis, Jean?
Oui, bien sûr.
Qu'est-ce que t'as dit aux employés?
La vérité.